Hi, this session is on the last index law that we'll be looking at, and I think it's pretty much the last one. We've covered all of them, and this involves the radical sign. Now, here we have 4 to the power of a half. What I want you to do is to put this in your calculator and see what the calculator gives you. Now, when you do that, you should get a positive 2, okay? I want you to try another one. Try 16 to the power of a half and see what you get. And what you should get is a 4. Now, when does a 4, when a 4 is involved, ever turn into a 2? Or when we have a 16, when can it possibly turn, or the answer become a 4? And it might ring a bell, and that is, if I had the square root of 4, or if I had the square root of 16, we know the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 16 is 4. So actually, anything to the power of a half is actually saying the square root of 4, or this is saying the square root of 16. Whenever you see a power half, it means the square root. And this 1 and this 2, we know are invisible. The 2 that's on the bottom goes on the outside, what's on the outside, and that 1 is in front of the 4. And the same with the 6. We've got the 2 there and the 1 there. So if I had cube root 8, okay, so we've got the power 3, the invisible power 1. We know the cube root of 8 is what? The number times itself 3 times to give us 8. Well, we know it's 2. And to write it without the radical sign, it would be 8 to the power of a third. These two things are the same thing. This will also equal 2. And you can check on your calculator. So what's happened is, this is something that you have to sort of see happening in your mind. That 3 has gone under the 1, okay? And I'll show you a trick in a minute. It's just easy to remember how it does that. But let's just make sure we understand how mathematicians came up with this index law. All right, so what I want you to do, imagine you're the mathematician that's discovering this. I want you to answer these 2 questions and see if you get the same answer or a different answer, using your knowledge of the index law and also your knowledge of the radical sign. So you should have paused it. We know that when we multiply and we have the same base, 4 and 4, the same base, we add the powers. So I got a half plus a half. So I would have 4. Half plus a half is a 1, or 4 to the power of 1. So my answer would just be 4. That wasn't too difficult. This one down here, well, knowing radical sign, so this is saying the square root of 4, which is 2, times the square root of 4, which is 2. I also get the answer 4. Because I'm obtaining the same answer, it means that these 2 ways of writing 4 are the same thing. 4 to the power of a half, or the square root of 4, is the same thing because we are able to obtain the same answer. Okay, so that's just for you to understand how we get this index law. So if I have, we'll do another example, the cube root of 125. So a number times itself 3 times to give me 125. I know the answer would be 5. But if I was told to put this using powers, well, this also can be written as 125. Remember, there's a 1 here, so I get this 3, and what we're doing is we're dividing it by the power. So dividing it by 1, so I have 125 to the power of a third. And this will also equal 5. Okay, so you have to be able to go back and forth. So if you have, for example, 16 to the power, so we'll do another example, 16 to the power of a quarter. Okay, now can you put this in the radical sign form? Yes, you can. So you get this 16 stays under the radical sign. And now it's that trick. The 4 that's on the bottom goes on the outside, and the 1 that's on top stays in the middle, stays on the 16. Now, is it possible to get an answer for this? 4 root 16, a number times itself 4 times to give you 16? Well, we know the answer would be 2. Okay, that's why it's important to be able to go back and forth, because 16 to the power of a quarter, we can't really work it out. But when we see it in this form, we know that 4 root 16 is just 2. Now, the other reason why this index law is important is sometimes we don't have numbers. Sometimes you're working with variables. Now, a question like this the question might ask you to find, it might say find, um, and you have to work it out. So what it's saying is basically remove the radical sign and simplify where you can. Now, don't be confused because yes, we've got algebra in here. There are no numbers. So we're not going to get a whole number as an answer, but we can find something else. And remember that trick. This power 3 on the outside will be divided by all the powers inside under the radical sign. It goes underneath. So what I would have is, and when I do this, the radical sign can go because we're putting it the power as a fraction. So get your bases ready, A, B, C. So I would have 9 divided by the number out here. So 9 divided by 3. I would have 15 divided by 3 or over 3 and 3 over 3. And then we just simplify and we're done. 9 divided by 3, so we've got A, B, C again. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And 3 divided by 3 is 1, which can be invisible. And we have found an answer without the radical sign, basically. So let's try one more. Now this one you notice has a number. Whenever you have a number under the radical sign, you try and square root it or cube root it the same way you would do if it was on its own. If you can't, then you just leave the power in fraction form. So for example, I know the square root of 4 is, if it was by itself, is just 2. So we can see that this 4 is going to become a 2. Okay, so if you want to deal with your numbers separately, so I know this is saying the square root, there's a 2 there, okay, and the square root of 4 is just 2. So in my answer, I'm going to have 2. Now this 2 is we're going to use it and divide it every other power with 2. Okay, the 4 has been taken care of, but remember there was a 1 in front of the above the 4, so we would have just divided that by 2. And we know 4 to the power of a half is just 2, but it's taken care of. But now A and C, can we simplify anything? Well, 16 divided by 2 is 8. Now with C, we can't divide 5 divided by 2. Don't turn it into a mixed fraction, just leave it, it's a 5, as an improper fraction, okay? And that's all you got to do. So this index law, I think, is quite easy. The trick is the power outside the radical sign, whether it's 2 or 3 or whatever it is, you divide it with every other power inside the radical sign, and that's it. And of course your numbers you work out normally. The square root of 4 is 2, and then 16 divided by 2 and 5 divided by 2. So I actually think this is the easiest index law, not the hardest. Thank you.